Okay, so this is a demonstration of two things. First is how to make individualized files for a list of people. And so in my case, I want to make files for students who have to do schoolwork, and each student's going to get a unique file to do their schoolwork on. And then I want to email each of these files to the students using Microsoft Outlook. So this is just stuff that I kind of figured out. Making the files I thought was easy. Working with Outlook I thought was kind of hard. So I'll just share what I've got with you. There's a lot of applications for this. Obviously the one that I'm talking about where you're sending individual files to students is one, but you might be in charge of a group of people and you have to send them all billing statements or something. So there's a way to individualize all the information that gets to them. So let's start with what's going on here. So I've got a file, and then the exercise would be what I want the students to do. So it says sort the numbers. I mean, this is not an exercise that I have students do. Just as an example, this could be something that you did. And so we've got this list of numbers, and I want the students to sort them. And so there are two things that I don't want a student to do. One is I don't want them to grab somebody else's file where the other student did the work and then just change the name of the file name and then submit that as though they did the work themselves. The other thing I don't want them to do, because I'm emailing them a file and I'm telling them you better use this file because if you don't, I'm going to catch you cheating. And so the other thing I don't want them to do is to take their file and somebody else's file and then just grab the data, like cut and paste stuff from the other person's file onto their file. So I want to change the data. Not every student's going to get the same list of numbers to sort. That way, if they cut and paste somebody else's stuff into their spreadsheet, then I'll be able to see that the data isn't theirs. Now, I don't check every student's submission for cheating. In fact, I almost never check a student's submissions for cheating. I just have too many things to grade, and most students don't cheat. But this gives me a way to prove that they are cheating if I suspect that they are, and that it turns out that they are, or verify maybe that they're not, you know. But this lets me figure out something that will identify and satisfy to me other than just suspecting that they're not doing their own work. Now, some of you may wonder, why am I telling everybody this and then putting this as public information when my students could look up this video and then go to GitHub and then see all my secret sauce and defeat my attempts to stop cheating? Two things there. First off, this isn't everything that I do. I'm just demonstrating a few things for the purpose of helping other people that might want to do a similar thing. But the other thing is, man, let me tell you what, if I've got a student who is looking up YouTube videos on how to do things and then going to GitHub to look at code, that is not one of my problem students. So if you are one of my students and you are doing this and you're watching this video and you're going to go to GitHub and pull down this code and start working with the code to defeat my attempts to make students honest, I got to tell you, you probably know enough that I'm not too worried about you. What I will ask is don't help the students who are not at your level of diligence and skill, because they need the work. They're, you know, I can't turn them loose without knowing how to do the stuff the class teaches. So, and also keep in mind, again, this isn't everything that I do. So I'm probably going to bring the hammer down extra hard if somebody not only cheated, but then they went to all the trouble to try and hide their tracks. So, okay, anyway, enough of that. But this doesn't have to be, and I'm not trying to catch students from cheating. I'm trying to make them know that I'm doing things like this so that they'll be dissuaded from doing it. But it doesn't have to be for that. It could be just to individualize items in Microsoft Office and then send an attachment to everybody. Okay, so this is the exercise. I want all the students to do it. This is my roll call. These are fictitious students. Don't worry. There is no FERPA violation going on here. This is not anybody's actual email address, and these are just names that I pulled off the internet, common last names. I think these are like the most common, I don't know, 25 most common last names in America or something. And then just most common, oh, I didn't get any girls' names. But anyway, that's okay. I guess I'm saying women don't cheat. Only men are dirty, dirty cheaters. So I've got their email address. And then this is just an individualized data item that I've grabbed. And then what I did was I smushed their last name and their first name together, and this is going to be like their file identifier. I'm going to use this when identifying their file. Then there's another tab here called Hider, and what I'm going to do for each student is just paste in this identifier into the Hider tab and then hide it so they can't see it. All right, so how does this thing work? Let's take a look at the code. Now you notice there's a tab here called Developer. If you're looking at your Excel and you don't have the Developer tab, I'll show you how to get it. But if you're new to this, I really recommend, this is a great way to learn how to code. Visual Basic was meant to be a beginner's programming language. It just ended up being kind of very powerful. And people like to bash it, like coders are weird. I don't know what their deal is. But it's actually a fully functional programming language. It works great. I know multiple programming languages. I have nothing against this. It works. So, okay, so what we need to do, if you don't see that Developer tab, you need to customize your ribbon, and that is here. So when this gets installed from Microsoft as a default, that's not checked, so just check it. Click OK, and then now if you click on Review, comments can now be used for, what the, okay, thank you. I want to go, not to Review, to Developer, that's why that showed up. So when you go to Developer, you can click on Visual Basic now, and this is my Visual Basic code. So this is, if you pull down this from GitHub, you'll see all this code, and it's basically two different jobs. So first one is going to just create an individualized workbook for everybody in the class. So let me make this much smaller. So it's going to go down the roll call and then create an individualized file for each of these kids. And this is the folder. It's going to drop that in. So let me just walk you through the code. So it's going to activate the roll call tab, go to range A1 select. So it's going to click on that cell, and that's our active cell. The one with the green thing around it is the active cell. And then I'm doing these by active cell references, but there are ways to do it by identifying ranges. In fact, a student showed me this. Another teacher was teaching her students how to identify data by data ranges, which is fine. I just, this is just very straightforward. It's easy to see what it's doing. Okay, so I've got my active cell, and then it's going and creating a variable here called indiv file. It's going over 5 cells and grabbing indiv file. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is indiv file. It's stuffing this into the variable called indiv file, and then quantity is 4. So 61 goes in here. So indiv file has Anderson James in it, and quantity has 61 in it. And then we're not going to check to see for compatibility. And then it's taking indiv file, and then it's creating a file path here to save a new spreadsheet. And here's where it does it. So it's going to copy just 2 of the tabs. It's not going to copy the roll call tab. It's going to copy exercise and hider. Exercise and hider. It's going to copy these and then make a whole new file. And then the file name is nameloc, not to be confused with tomeloc, but name location. And so this is a variable that holds the whole path, including the individualized part of the student's stuff. Okay, so then after that, it goes in and it changes all these built-in properties. What are built-in properties? It's these here, properties. And so it's going to change the title, put in a comment, change the author. It's going to just stuff their name in a bunch of places. Now, can a student just go in there and change all those? Sure. I mean, they better make sure they get them all. Nothing here is something that can't be defeated. I mean, I'm not using some special NSA encryption. It's just if you do enough of these things, man, they got to be right. They have to be diligent on all of the things, and you just have to get lucky once, right? And so you figure a student that's that diligent, that works that hard, that is not the student who's cheating in your class. All right, so I like to watch code run and make things that I don't have to make, because if I had to do this all on my own, I would let the students cheat, because this is just way too much work to do. So, all right, let's run this thing and let's see. Will this make individualized Excel spreadsheets for all of these students? And again, like I said, I don't check students' homework to see if they've cheated. I really don't. The only time I do this is if I suspect a student is turning in somebody else's work. And then this gives me a way to verify that it really did happen. Because after that, they're getting a 0 and their grade's going to get impacted. And so I would only do that if I was 100% sure. Okay, so here we go. Boom. Let's see here. All right, and it's kind of hard to see. It's creating spreadsheets and then making them disappear as quickly as it's creating them. So, and there we go. So this is slow. I've written versions of this code where it goes much faster. Basically, the difference is here I'm creating a new spreadsheet and then changing things in the new spreadsheet. That takes a long time. What I was doing before was just running it all from here and then saving this file, this fake file, as a different name every time. The trouble is when you're done running, then you've got the last student's file. You don't have the one you started with. Small thing. It ran much quicker than this. But this, to create these 25 records, takes 2 minutes. It's not like this is, probably not even 2 minutes. It's almost done. There we go. Okay, so it's done executing. Now I've got all these files. So how do I know if somebody turns in the right file to me? So, and again, like this code, try it out, see if you can get it to work. So how do I know if a student is sending me their file or whether they're cheating? So let's say I think John Brown. John Brown sounds like a cheater to me. So I open up John Brown's file. So I knew what John Brown was. He was a dirty cheater. So all John Browns must be dirty cheaters. Obviously, I'm not serious. Okay, so here we go. I've got John Brown's file. So the first thing I'm going to look for is what about his individualized value here? John Brown should have a 20 in his data. And there it is. The other thing, remember hider? Hider? Okay, so hider is hidden. Now, you can reveal worksheets. Hider will not show up if you reveal worksheets. Like you can do a reveal all on worksheets. Hider won't show up because hider isn't just hidden. It's very hidden. Very hidden. So again, if you're a student doing that, don't share this with the bad students. You're obviously a very smart student who's going to dig into code. So you are not my problem. It's those bad students. Okay, so and again, so I'm gonna reveal hider and see like is this really this guy's file? And so if you run this code, it reveals all your worksheets, and there we go. So there's hider, and oh, all right, John Brown. I was wrong. John Brown is honest. He turned in proper spreadsheet. For those of you who are going to use this as an opportunity to learn how to code, what you want to do is check the first, last, and one of the middle records. So if I weren't very confident that this ran correctly, I would check Ronald Wilson and Anderson James. These names, by the way, these are just common names. And you'll notice there's not even any women here. Maybe that means that women don't cheat. I don't know. But these are not actual students, and these are clearly not actual email addresses. I don't know, somebody probably did buy yourschool.edu. I'm not going to email these out, so I don't want somebody identifying me as a spammer or something like that. Okay, so I have all these files, and I want to email them to students, but, again, I don't want to create tons of work for myself. So what I'd like to do is attach these into email messages, and I have the emails for all my students. So now, and this doesn't, again, this application, it doesn't have to be to try and dissuade students. Like, I'm not trying to catch students from cheating. I'm trying to let them know that I'm doing this so that they won't cheat. They won't be tempted. But it doesn't have to be for something like that. This could be that you need to send individualized statements to 80 people based on stuff that's in a spreadsheet, or you need to, I don't know, send out service awards, or who knows. But you need to send out individualized Microsoft Office generated documents. And you don't want to spend days and days doing each one individually. You want to automate it. And even cutting and pasting gets old, right? So this just, boom, 2 minutes, the machine does your work. Okay, so now the next step is I want to drop these into Outlook. What's unique about, well, not unique, this happens a lot, but what's unusual about my Outlook is that I have 2 files. This is my work file because we got COVID going on, so I got to see, what my work emails are here at home. And then this is just a personal account I have, Jimmy at Strebler Rocks. And so depending on what I'm doing, I usually want to select the one for work But for this example, I really don't want even to risk that these will hit the work email server and that they'll think that I'm spamming things to fictitious email addresses and I have to explain what I was doing. So I want to drop these into this email account, not this one, and there's a way to do that. In fact, this took me a long time to figure out. So let's go to my code. This is the code that makes the email. And so what it's going to do is activate this roll call worksheet in fake Excel. So let me make sure that, yeah, that's the only one I've got open. It's going to select cell A1 again. Then it's going to do the same thing. It's going to grab their email address and then the individual file name and their last name. And then we're going to make emails for everybody. To get this to use the right account, three things that hung me up. The first is, before you do anything, go to Tools, not Options, go to Tools, References, and make sure that you've got Microsoft Outlook Object Library selected. Make sure there's a check mark there and click OK. When you do that, it should go to the top with all these. Okay. Priority I don't think matters that much, but make sure that you've got a check mark on it and it's there. Okay. Next thing you need to do is, if you've got multiple accounts and you want to use a specific one, there are little utilities that you can use to see which accounts are which numbers. My work account is my number 1 account, and this Strebler Rocks is my number 2 account. Now, to use the proper account, use this command. All right, and number 2 means I use my number 2 account. Then when you send it, you send using account, this variable. Okay, these two things, man, my code was so close, but just a little bit different than this. And also this, it's called early bindings, I think they call that, when you go ahead and define the reference early on. So you set early bindings, use this set command. And oh my Lord, I tried this a million different ways. I had some ways that actually worked, but they were just so ugly from a code perspective. I just couldn't deal with that. So, and I mean, I teach information systems, so I should at least have reasonable looking code. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go through the roll call and create an email for each of these people. And then we're going to do it until this do until active cell equals null value, the thing that I tell my students. And so if you're new to this, make sure that there is nothing in this cell. By that, what I mean is make sure there's not a space in there. That's a space. That's not nothing. That's a space. A space is something. A space is a space. It's not nothing. This means null set, which means there is truly nothing in there. So what I tell students is, if you want to mark end of data, go to it. You either need to put something in there, like put in end. Like put something that signifies end of data, or go in there and hit your delete key so that you know that there's nothing in there. So I hit my delete key, now I know that there's nothing in there. And then I'm going to create an object here. So again, using the early bindings, these things, you will get errors if you didn't do the early bindings. You can still do it. What you do is you have to dimension an object, and I don't know, but just set those early bindings. Take my word for it. Hear me now, believe me later. And then set the account you want to use, say, send using account, and then have this send command. You've got 2 send commands here. This is just saying which account you're going to use. This actually does the creation of the email. And then to avoid anything where you've got some residual gunk, I set the entire object, this whole object called mail, I set that to nothing before I loop through again. And I read the next record. So this is what we call a this is a pretest or post-test loop. It's a pretest loop, right? That's testing, yeah, because we're reading the next record. This is the way that they taught us back in the 80s. I don't know what they teach now. You read the first record, run your logic, and then read your last record here. The reason you do it this way, you read the first record outside of your loop, is that if your first record is already null set, then you get out without using any CPU cycles. These days, I don't know who cares about CPU cycles. They're so cheap. But okay, let's run this thing, and if it runs properly, everything should jump into my out bucket here for the proper account. Account 2, not account 1. Let's find out. Where can I put this? We'll just put it there. I'll end small in this here like that. All right, and away we go. And this goes super fast. And in fact, the one that creates the spreadsheets, if you just like change values and then resave it, goes pretty quickly. This goes super fast just because, I mean, these objects are really easy to do. So you can see that took like 1 second. The reason that I have this in offline mode, and I do this when I create actual emails for my students, is students are very high strung. You don't want to stress them out by making a lot of mistakes. Like you don't want to send an email and then send another email saying disregard that previous email, right? And then and you don't want to send a file and then it's the wrong file, and then you send an email that says don't use that file, and then you send another email with you will freak out at least one student, maybe many. So I want to get this right the first time that I do it. So I go ahead and do all this in offline mode, and then I verify. So at a minimum, what I want to verify is that they have the right file attached, and they do. So here, Ronald Wilson has, this is not a Ronald Reagan thing, this is just random, but he's got the right file attached. So and I can go back and see the file. So again, first, last, and middle is what you want to check. Let's try James Anderson. He's good. So I'll just, and then Christopher Lee. That's a real person, right? Christopher Lee, wasn't he an actor? Okay, so those guys, now here what happens when I send this. If I click this work offline, it would go and send all these. They would all fail because these aren't real people. And then these wouldn't, so I just would open these up and then hit this send thing myself. So I think if you did that now while this is offline, they'd go in here. So there they are. I've got all my emails, and you can see like the whole process is just minutes. I mean, once you get it down, it doesn't take very long. And again, there's tons of applications for this, not all to try and catch students or prevent students from doing something they're not supposed to do. I mean, you could send out bills to people or send out service awards, or I don't know. Use your imagination. Whatever you want to do, do what you want to do. So that's it. I'm going to post all the code to GitHub. So make sure that if you're interested in this, pull down the code, start working with it. It's how we all learn. So if you've never done this before, go for it. Visual Basic's a really good language to teach you principles. And it's very powerful. I mean, you can get, Visual Basic, it's sort of fallen out of favor. I guess coders don't like anything that says basic. Also, BASIC stands for Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code, so maybe they don't, nobody wants to code in something that's for beginners, I guess. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it, and I can code in a lot of languages, so I mean, it's not that I only code in this. So pull the code down from GitHub, have fun, catch those cheaters, and we'll see you soon.